This is Donnie Tuttle from Southwestern Consulting's Sell Anywhere podcast. If you can sell anywhere, we can help you sell everywhere. We're the podcast for professionals and teams who don't quite fit into the traditional brick and mortar office structure. Helping you live a life of freedom and productivity, we believe that you truly can sell from anywhere.
What is up? This is Donnie Tuttle, the Sell Anywhere sales coach with Southwestern Consulting, your host. And you are going to want to either A, commit to listening to this one several times, or B, get out your pens and paper wherever you're at. Pull over, because I have got a barn burner for you today. We have with us the one, the only, Stu Heineke, who is the author of How to Get a Meeting with Anyone. I'm not sure. It's got to be on some bestsellers list. Stu will help us out with that. Also, the podcast. He runs the podcast, How to Get a Meeting with Anyone, as well. I have picked up so many things, and I am really looking forward to digging into the brain of the master. He is a humorist. He's a cartoonist, and he's awesome. You're going to love him. So, Stu, welcome to the Sell Anywhere podcast. What's going on, my friend?
Hey, Donnie, thanks for having me on. It's good to be here.
Man, tell us a little bit about yourself. They say that no man lives on an island, but I hear that that's not necessarily true.
Well, I think they say no man is an island, but
that's what it is, to himself. Yes.
Yeah, but I do live on an island. I live on an island just north of Seattle, and I love it. God, it's like being halfway to heaven. It's just amazing. It's so pretty here, and so removed from the city. It's just amazing. So it's all just forest and farmland, and it just goes right to the edge of the islands. Of the island, and it's just this long, irregularly shaped island. It's just unbelievably beautiful.
If you're someone who travels and you're looking for an awesome place in our nation, my favorite is that northwestern corner. Actually, northeastern corner, northwestern corner. So Maine and Washington, and boy, we were up near your area, Stu. I apologize because I know we're going to create an invasion of people that are coming there now, driven by this podcast traffic to your area. But anyways, awesome area. So, man, tell us, because you've gone, Stu, just trace for us a little bit of your career, because I know that you right now you're doing something a little bit different than where we started, at least as far as I know. So you started out as a cartoonist with...
Well, actually, I mean, I have such a strange background, because all of my education is in marketing, but I also loved cartooning, and so they just developed simultaneously. And at some point, after graduating college, I wanted to be involved in creating direct marketing campaigns, but I wanted to involve cartooning, because I knew that cartoons were. I just knew from readership surveys that are conducted by magazines and newspapers that cartoons are almost always the best read and remembered parts of anything they're in editorial, I should say, and that's quite a statement, because you think about what's in those publications. Their collective works. Everything in there is meant to be memorable and get your attention, and be your favorite part of the magazine or the newspaper. But it turned out that cartoons are just about always the best read and remembered part. And so I wanted to mix the two. I wanted to mix the power of cartoons and cartooning with marketing, and ended up creating direct mail campaigns for publishers when I first got out of college. And I did it for publishers because it was the biggest arena. I mean, they were the biggest, most sophisticated users and testers in direct response. So if you created something there and it beat their control, beat their record-breaking, the campaigns that broke the record for them in terms of response, then you really, really have done something. That was like the major leagues.
No, I'm gonna put you on pause for a second, yeah. Stu, because you, my friend, you weren't cartooning. You weren't the cartoonist at the Redneck News. We're talking about, this is the Wall Street Journal. right?
Well, eventually it was, yeah.
Okay.
I started with Redneck News.
Okay, so we start with the Redneck News. We're in the Wall Street Journal, and before we dig into even maybe more of really what has become your work now, I think it's actually an important point. Why do you think cartoons are something that is the most memorable of all of the information, all of those words, all of the stuff that's contained there? Why do you think that is?
Great question. And I would joke with you and say I have no idea, but really I do. They're easy to read. First of all, I mean, it's a funny little drawing with a couple lines of text, and the drawings, without trying to elicit a pun, they do draw you in. I mean, you just can't help but look at them and go, okay, what's going on there? And then we know where we're trained that when, at least if you see them in a magazine, if you see them in the New Yorker, then you've got a pretty good sense that, okay, this is going to be something funny. It feels good to laugh. I mean, it's really good for us. One time, one of my cartoons helped someone pass a kidney stone. They're really good for your health.
Oh, gosh.
So we know that there's something really, really good, something pleasurable when you read a cartoon. You expect it. You hope that'll happen. And then here, what's really amazing about cartoons, and really just about humor, is that they're about truth revealed in a twist. Every time we laugh at something, that's the nature of humor. We laugh when we say, "Oh my God, that's so true." Well, that's a really important point, because if you can direct that in the humor, of course, that's what I learned to do. Then what you're doing is directing the thing that they're saying that's so true. Now, here you have this device that is getting more attention than just about anything you could put in print or on a screen. And then when someone reads it, they're saying, yeah, all they have to do is say, ha, ha. By doing that, they already agree. There's already a planted point of agreement in their heads. So it's just an incredibly powerful device for marketers.
I love it. And Stu, I always think about, and I can't remember who I heard this concept from, but several years ago in my sales career, someone said, take your message, simplify it some more, and put it, if you can't put it in a 140 character tweet, then you're not there yet. And I think it was Mark Twain who said, I wrote a long letter only because I didn't have time to write you a short one. And I think what you're doing is you're involving, first off, all parts of the brain, some part that says, hey, that's true. But it's almost like you're getting at the main ideas and you're delivering it in a way that's easy, and there's humor. There's something about that combination of making it easy and humor.
Yeah, it's just instant, and it's just instant pleasure. And I'll give you an example. I don't know if it's the best example, but it's the one I have near me. I did a cartoon of this guy, and he's leafing through. He's cradling the phone on his shoulder, and he's leafing through some papers. He's at his desk, and he's talking to the phone. He's saying, "Hey, listen, we got your proposal, and we like everything except having to pay you." Well, how many times have we heard that? Or they might even say that actually, but certainly if our prospects haven't quite said it that way, we know that's what's going on, right? We've all been through that. So that's what makes that cartoon funny.
Oh my goodness. Yes. I'm smiling over here. So absolutely. Absolutely. And so I really want to zoom into where we're at right now. And so you stumbled upon something where you mixed two worlds. And I think it was Elon Musk recently who said, hey, if you want to bring value to the world, become an expert at one thing, then become an expert at another, and then find where those two things intersect. And you did that, right? You took,
oh my gosh, wow,
cartoons, and then you took marketing. Yeah,
that is true.
Yeah, right. You took those two, and now all of a sudden there's a spark that happened for you. And can you bring us into where you discovered what we now know, or what you've now deemed contact marketing? So can you share with us a little bit about that?
Sure. I mean, I think there's just one story that encapsulates the whole thing, and that's, again, going way back to when I was starting out, and I wanted to create direct mail campaigns for publishers. Well, I got my first two assignments for test campaigns, one for Rolling Stone, the other for Bon Appetit. And when you create one of these test campaigns, it's tested against a control. And I should explain that real quickly, that in statistics, we test against a control group, a constant. In direct marketing, you're testing against a control which is the most effective thing they've ever put out there. So if you tie the control, that means you just tied the record for the most response that they've gotten in that slot in their campaign. If you beat the control, you just set the new record. Well, my first 2 assignments, keeping in mind that I I won't say cheating, but I wasn't cheating, but I had this secret weapon. I was working under I was disrupting direct mail, I guess, because I was using the cartoon device. And the first 2 campaigns beat their controls. It's like, it's like a rookie walking out onto the baseball field in the major leagues and hitting 2 grand slam home runs. It just doesn't happen, but it did. So I thought, okay, that's my opening. Now I can bring this to the rest of the publishing industry. But there was, the big problem that we all have when we're saying, let's bring whatever we got to whoever we want to bring it to. How do I get in touch? And so what I did was I put together this little campaign. I didn't know what to call it, so I called it a contact campaign. And really, it just consisted of an 8x10 print of a cartoon. Each cartoon that I do, all the cartoons I do are written so that there's a data insertion point for first and last name. So it's personalized. It's about you when you get one. And so there was an 8x10 print and then a note that just said, hey, this is the device I just used to beat the controls for Rolling Stone and Bon Appetit. And I think we should put it to the test for your titles. That went out to about 24 people in the publishing industry. And so these were VPs and directors of circulation or consumer marketing at Time Inc., Time Warner, let me think here, Condé Nast, the Wall Street Journal, Forbes, etc. These are not easy people to reach. And, I thought, well, first of all, if I got a 1% response rate, which was that number that was always bandied about in direct response, if you get a 1% response rate, you're doing really well. There is no such number. But if I got a 1% response rate to a campaign that went to 24 people, that doesn't even amount to one person. It's like, I don't know what that means.
Right.
So, and I thought, even if I get a 10% response rate, that's a disaster. I need to reach all of them. And I'd been told in the direct response industry that 100% response rates were impossible, but I just shrugged it off. That's what I need. So that's what I'm shooting for. And what do you suppose I got for a response to that campaign?
I read, so I kind of know. So why don't you share? Yeah.
Well, that I got through to all of them. So that's 100% response rate. All of them became clients. That's 100% conversion rate. And it all stemmed from this little campaign to 24 people, roughly, I guess. It cost me maybe $100 total to do that campaign. And it launched my business. It was worth millions of dollars to me. And that really is the essence of contact marketing. I had a small audience, very important contacts. I needed to reach all of them. In this case, I didn't spend a lot. Some people have spent a lot on their contact campaigns, but I didn't spend much. And the results were 100% contact or response rate.
100. That is unheard of.
Yeah, it's not supposed to happen. Well, in direct marketing, it doesn't happen.
No, it doesn't.
Yeah,
I was
elsewhere.
Yeah, I worked in that world for a segment of my life, and they said, hey, we did a variety of different things, but it was a known industry standard, like, hey, the only 2 predictables is direct mail and email campaigns, and that like the predictor is like 1%. So it's like that's not too encouraging, right?
Well, yeah. And you remember then that they would say that also that 100% response rates are impossible.
Oh yeah. That was off the table. Yeah.
Yeah, forget it. It's not going to happen. So when I got 100% response rates, it's happened a few times. Before writing the book and connecting with all the people who've been doing this anyway, I used to hide that fact because I thought if I tell someone this, it's going to be like saying I saw a UFO. But not only am I wrong, but man, I have no credibility.
Well, I will tell you, and we're actually going to take a real quick break here for our audience. But that reminds me of a story of one of my clients who you're going to meet. But he saw Bigfoot. So we'll take a break and we'll talk about that coming up soon.
Hey, I hope you're really being sparked and challenged by the podcast. Listen, one thing I know is that every top player out there needs a good coach behind them.
At Southwestern Consulting, we actually coach thousands of leaders and entrepreneurs and sales professionals to get to the next level while living a lifestyle by design. If you're curious about having a coach on your team and about what that might look like, just go check out donnietuttle.com and click on the link that says request a free call. That's donnietuttle.com. So Stu, I'm really excited to dig into this with you because most when sales and people hear about marketing, they kind of turn the volume down only because they think, well, that's something that's out of my control, and the reason that you're here today in my audience is usually strictly these are sales professionals, sales leaders, and what I've seen from you, what I've read from you actually gives not only power to them, but it gives it like there are so many. I think Stu, you unleash creativity, originality. I think you give permission, and maybe you are dubbing an army of knights who are able to go out there and to do something that's a little different. First off, I want to know, why do you think contact marketing works? I feel like it's because it's different and unexpected, but why do you think it works?
Well, I think there's really kind of a simple part to this or aspect to it, which is that whatever you do, however you reach out, I think the thing you want happening on the other end of this is to have the recipient say, man, I love the way you think. And, if you've done that and, you were starting out cold, but if they're saying, if that's the conclusion they come to because of what you've done, that's a great way to walk in the door and talk to someone about a solution you have. So I think that's it. I think it's because it works because it has that effect. When it's working properly, it has that effect of people saying, man, oh my God, look at this. I love the way this guy thinks.
Man. I think that I think that's what we want. All of us, when we do business with people, at some level, I believe that we want to identify with that person. We want to say, like, this is someone I can trust, and usually we're saying internally somewhere, I trust them because they're like me, or or they get me. And so what you just said there, like, I love the psychological sliver that you just you took a core sample there, Stu. In some of the ideas that I've seen and heard of, and we'll get into maybe a couple of your favorites, and I'm just going to throw this out there to tantalize the audience a little bit. By the way, get the book, listen to the podcast, do yourself a favor. How to Get a Meeting with Anyone. You want to do this, and it really is solid stuff. But Stu, there's stories of people sending swords with meaningful notes. There's some people, I love the idea, like some people send burner phones. Some people, they're literally using carrier pigeons to deliver things. And so, like, as vast as your imagination is, remote control helicopters or drones or whatever, as vast as your imagination is, really, it doesn't matter. There's so many ways. And even if we told you all that we could think of right now, like, you could probably double those ideas tomorrow. But I want to know, Stu, who do you think should be and could be using contact marketing?
Well, anybody could be. It's anybody who has a need to reach someone that's important to them. So, we usually frame that in terms of salespeople who are going after, let's say, major accounts, or it's just whether they're major or not. If they're their accounts and they're tasked with breaking through, then those are the people who are most important to them right now. But beyond that, it could be to connect with someone who serves as a mentor or as a partner, a strategic partnership maybe, or I interviewed a fascinating guy the other week from my next book, and he used a really interesting. Put an interesting use of AdWords to get a job. Guy spent $6 and reached the creative directors of the top 6 agencies in Manhattan, and just to connect with him and take a look at his portfolio. And 5 of them responded. 3 of them interviewed him. 1 hired him, and he spent a total of $6.
Oh my goodness!
There's no end to the
it's not about money,
Audacity out there.
Tell me what you think of this, Stu. I always there's sometimes just as I'm going through things or I'm bringing people through things, there's a term I coined. At least I give myself credit for it. But tell me if this resonates with the sentiment here. And it's business romantic is what I call it.
So meaning what?
Well, I mean, the idea is when, like, I feel like sales and in connecting with people. I love how you said you do this with people who are important to you. You know, like if you're trying to connect with someone who's important to you, and so literally the same laws at work to to attract a mate. Which there's another story I want to get to.
Oh, that's true.
The same laws that take us towards that and create a relationship and say, hey. You're like, I want to meet you, and I'm someone that you should take the time to talk with. And we're basically getting the attention of someone else. That those same things that happen when we're dating people and gaining their attention actually work if we take the mentality and some of the over the top type of ideas that works in the world of business as well. Does that?
Well, I think that's probably true. What I might be saying next, but I do think that's true. Well, it's about making human to human connections. So all of that is human connections, whether it's business or romantic connections. We're just people. We're just trying to connect.
So, share with me maybe a couple of your favorite ideas that you've heard that you thought, wow, that was pretty creative, or maybe it was a results thing, or maybe it was because it costs next to nothing. Share a couple of those things if you would.
Sure. Well, there are some really much bigger stories, but I'm looking at some guy sent me a block of wood through the mail. So, it's literally, it's a block of wood, and he wrote my name on it, and he put a stamp on it and sent it to me. And you know what? That's great. It's a visual metaphor, and we connected over it. And I just love Audacity is a big part of this.
Ooh, yes.
So, I loved the audacity of it, and I just thought it was really cool. Now, let's say toward the other end of the spectrum is Dan Waldschmidt. And Dan, I don't know if your listeners may know his name. He writes the blog Edgy Conversations, and he's one of the top sales bloggers in the world. Dan is one of these. He's just an amazing guy. He runs 100-mile races and wins. And that's 4 marathons. Wow, that's
yeah, super marathon. Yeah,
it's a crazy thing. So his personal brand is ultra competitiveness and knife's edge competitiveness as well, I guess. And so the thing is that he doesn't write the blog for a living. What he does is for a living is he's a turnaround specialist, and he has this really, really interesting method of breaking through to the people that he needs to reach. He reads reads the business news every morning looking for stories of missed earnings estimates. And when he finds one, he has a beautiful sword made up. This sword is made by the prop maker who made all the swords for the movie Gladiator.
No way.
Yeah, they're gorgeous. And he has the CEO's name engraved on the sword, on the blade, and then a quote from either himself or Tupac Shakur. His is, if you're not all in, you're not in at all. And I forget what the one from Tupac is, but that's kind of cool actually to put that on there. My peeps or my soldiers or something like that. And the sword's then placed in this beautiful wooden box with a handwritten note that says, "Hey, dear Bob," or whoever this is, the CEO that's missed their earnings estimates. "Dear Bob, business is war, and I get it. And I noticed that you lost the battle recently. I just want to let you know, if you ever need a few extra hands in battle, we've got your back." What's interesting about that is he didn't even put it on his letterhead. It's just a note.
Yes.
You might think, well, that is not, there's no branding going on there, but actually there's a lot of branding going on there because, again, of the audacity. He's just sending a sword and a handwritten note.
Yes.
Who the heck is this guy? Right? Who would do this? But also, who thinks like this? This is incredible. Remember, the mission is always, man, I love the way you think. And so Dan says that he reports that he gets essentially 100% response rate to that campaign. He spends $1,000 every time he sends one out. So, he's got to target. He's got to target the campaign pretty carefully, but he does, because these are trigger events. They're stories of missed earnings estimates. They're perfect trigger events for this to go out. And the $1,000 per send makes sense when you put it in the context of the fees that he gets from turnaround assignments, which are $1 million and up.
Wow.
So it makes sense. And look what he's doing. He's getting 100% response rate on a mode of business that is worth $1 million and up when he scores a hit. So what an incredible thing he's done. It's kind of like the equivalent of him running a 100-mile race.
Yes.
Wow.
The man of the hundreds. What? And I've got to ask myself, would I take this guy's call? Oh, God, how could you not? How could you not? Right?
Hey, I took the guy's call from who sent the block of wood.
Right.
Of course, I would take his call.
Right. And just to throw a few things out there for those who are listening, you can be audacious and send a sword or, do something crazy. Again, get the book. You'll see some really neat ideas along with the methodology and mentality that goes along with that. But I've done things like send green eggs and ham with a Post-it note on it. And, to get the attention, there's so many things you can do. And tell me this, when you think about contact marketing, does it have to be personal? Is it better if it's personal? Because I know, like with your cartoons, a lot of times you would actually, it would be about the person themselves. You've actually gotten the attention of presidents doing this. So tell me, like, where do you think maybe the rule of adding the personal versus maybe not so personal?
Well, I think that's interesting you bring that up because, I do think in general it should be personal. But here's the thing, the nature of personalization is changing. When I was creating direct mail campaigns, and we, again, I wrote a gag, I wrote a cartoon. The gag the caption has data insertion points for first and last name. So because of that, the cartoon, and it's carefully written so that it makes sense and all that, it's conversational, et cetera. That cartoon was the device that got people to say, whoa, what is this? And, they'd clip it out and put it on the refrigerator door and so on, but they'd respond to it. And they got great response. And, if they were rolling out these campaigns, the publisher might be sending 2 million of these things. So that's one form of personalization. And I had to, in the book, in this next book, I had to really examine what's going on because there's another kind of personalization where people are doing profile scrapes. They're doing this deep research on who this person is and what their interests are, and there are some great stories of reps really paying attention to what's going on with people and then responding to them. A lot of times it's with gifts, but they're very, very personal gifts, and it does open doors quite effectively. But and then there are other uses of that sort of deep research, deep personal research, one-on-one or one-to-one research that are also quite effective as well. So what we really have now are two different forms of personalization, and again, I don't have a term. No one has a term for it as far as I know. So I'm calling it broad, or rather wide personalization, or deep personalization. So the wide one is the one you can think of it like an organizational chart almost. Here it is. Here's my thing. Now it's going to 2 million people. If it's a mailing, 2 million people. Or let's say it's 20 people, but it's the same cartoon. I just have filled in their names. And the other version is you're going. It's very vertical. You're one person reaching out to another person. There's no scale going on there. It's just I want to find out about you, Donnie, and find out what kinds of things you're interested in, and I'm going to listen to what you're posting. And if there's an opening, if I see an opening, I'll send something, and we'll probably make a connection because of that. And I wouldn't say that either of them is wrong, or even a lot of people like to throw around the term old school right now, which is funny to me because they'll talk about things being old school if they aren't digital. Although digital is, let's call it conventional at least. It's like everyone does it. So no one's unique if they're using digital marketing either. So But if you're using broad personalization, I guess the thing is it allows you to scale it really easily. It has to be based on some assumptions, but I described that cartoon to you earlier, the guy looking at your proposal, and of course that one's not personalized, but I could probably send that to all the people in sales, and 90% of them would love it because they've been through it. It's an experience that we all share, and it just sort of encapsulates it and kind of it gives us a laugh, and we can show it around. And if you could send it to a client who's acting that way, and I think it would actually kind of loosen things up. But it's a pretty good assumption that if I'm sending that to an audience of salespeople, most of them are going to love it. So broad or wide personalization works quite well. It's been working quite well for a long time. But then there's also deep personalization, which also works quite well. It's not. I wouldn't call it scalable because it's one-to-one. It's always focused on just a single person, and each person's going to. We're all different, so we're going to focus on those things that make each of us different. But it still works. Both of them work really, really well.
I love it. And it's interesting when you said something old school and then actually you use the term conventional. It almost feels like what we're trying to do is to break the mindset of what's expected. That whenever I'm seeing something over and over and over again, my brain identifies that as a pattern. Whether it's like if it's a call, "Hi, this is Donnie. How are you today?" Like when you hear that, you're thinking, "Oh, salesperson," and you categorize it as such, and you give it a certain type of attention or non-attention. And the same thing happens with email and direct mail and all of the things that everyone is doing. But when you break the mold of it, I remember actually in many instances getting people's attention through fax, because who does a fax anymore? Nobody. Yeah. All of a sudden the machine comes on and starts cranking something out, and you can easily. Or I send handwritten letters. I like to wax seal those letters, but it's like, again, it's not something that that was the only mode of communication 100 years ago, and now it's almost like because nobody does it anymore, it becomes novel and
that's
different.
It. Yeah, I mean that's it. If anybody out there is thinking, well, I don't want to use old school or new school, if you hear yourself uttering the words old school, stop and check your thinking, because when people use that to describe, let's say, sending something through the mail, the wax sealed letter. I suppose they could call it old school because that's how people used to communicate. I would call it really smart marketing right now, because you're using an uncrowded channel. The mail is really pretty uncrowded at this point, and you're doing something that really, really stands out. And what happens as a result?
Right. I mean, as a result, I get attention, and people are, they're willing to take the call.
So let's just be pragmatic and say, let's use what works.
Love it.
And don't worry about whether it's not digital, and therefore, I mean, if it seems like anything that's not digital is called old school, or receives that sort of dig. But anything that's digital, and look, digital is wonderful. All of it's wonderful, but it's conventional at this point. Who doesn't know and use SEO? Who doesn't use email?
Right.
What's so unusual about that, or earth-shattering, or leading edge about any of that?
Take me here, Stu. When I consider marketing, really, it's the introduction. It's the handshake. Maybe it's, if we're back in terms of dating, maybe it's the wink, or it's whatever. It gets someone's attention, right?
Yeah.
But if that's all we do, we die there too. It doesn't matter how cool and how great it was. And you actually have some really good stuff in your book about making sure that connection happens, and a part of that involves the help of the gatekeeper, but take us into the conversation that needs to be had. So let's just say you sent something magnificent, and it doesn't matter if it was from the dollar store, or it was an iPad with a message, or it was $1,000 sword. So it's been delivered. How what happens next?
Well, first of all, I would say before that even happens, because we're talking about gatekeepers. I mean, like that's a term I hate, because executive assistants, people reduce them to that, and when they do that, they make a mistake. That's like thinking old school.
You know, that is old school.
It really look here's these people are. They're first of all, they're some of the sharpest people in their organizations. They really are. You know, the executive assistant to the president or CEO of the company, they report to the president or the CEO. You know, that's pretty impressive, right?
Direct line, yes.
And so, what these people really are they're talent scouts.
Yes.
You know, they you know, yes, part of their job is to keep the wrong people out. And if you've been kept out, then they have determined you're the wrong people. But they're also they're also tasked with letting the right people in. And that's not always the people that know the president or the president knows. It's things that he or she, I mean, it's usually a woman in my experience, the job is to bring things to the boss that they would otherwise miss. So they've got a really important job on the other side of that gatekeeping aspect. And you really should be thinking of them as vice presidents of access. They're vice presidents. They report to the president or to the CEO, and they control access. So you really should involve them in your campaign. Not try. I mean, a lot of times people say, how do you circumvent the executive assistant? Well, if you're doing that, you're making a big mistake. Include them. They can be allies, and if you're bringing value, if you're bringing something that their executive really needs to know about, they'll help you.
And conventionally, what's everyone else doing? By the way, they're trying to bypass these people, right?
Yeah.
So you're actually enlisting their help.
Exactly. So you asked what do you say to the executive assistant? And my favorite one, you know, of course, I'm going to talk about sending the thing that I like to send a lot, which is a big cartoon. I call it a big board, but it's a big cartoon board.
Yeah, tell us that. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's a 18 by 24 inch, quarter-inch thick foam core board. And on one side there's a cartoon. It's about the target recipient, and on the other side there's all the branding and the messaging, which is, you know, a message from the sender to the recipient explaining who they are, why they'd like to meet, and, you know, setting up some next step for connecting. And so, you know, before any of that happens, I love making a phone call to the executive assistant and saying, "Hi, my name is Stu Heineke. I'm one of the Wall Street Journal cartoonists, and I'm sending a print of one of my cartoons, and it's about your boss." Well, by the time I finish those few words, the assistant is saying, "What, really? Okay." And so, and then I just finished it by saying, "Look, I want it to be a surprise for your boss, but not to you. So would you mind if I send you an email with these details?" "Oh my God, no, not at all. Here's my email address." And that's usually the reaction. And then you know, the print or the big board goes out, but I also send a card to the executive assistant because I want to thank them for their help.
Yes.
So they get a cartoon about themselves too. But, you know, I know what the effects of all these things are. So I've been doing it for a long time. So I know that when they get a card and there's a cartoon that's about them, that's already pretty cool. When they open up the card and they see a handwritten note and the signature of the cartoonist, they're going, "Wow, you know, this is really cool." They'll keep it on their desk the bulletin board for a very, very long time.
Oh yeah. That's
a great thing. So by the time the big board arrives, the executive assistant they're really ready to spring into action and say, "Okay, great. I've got the FedEx tracking number now. I'll make sure that it gets on his desk." And, you know, they quarterback the campaign.
Oh man. And by the way, obviously with the day and time that we live in now, sometimes there are things that arrive in packages, and if it's unexpected, it might not get received. So you definitely need someone's help. But now I want you to take me into the conversation now with the CEO, which is really defined as whoever is the person that you really need to make the connection with. So it doesn't have to have that necessarily that title, but they now have this in hand. Like what? Because again, if this is just happening and we're expecting them to call us, maybe it happens, maybe not. But what are you doing to create now something that bumps them into relationship, but also into a potential sales conversation?
Well, I would say, first of all, that remember I said earlier that you want to be doing something that has them saying, "Wow, I love the way you think." Right? That's great. If you're going to be talking to a CEO, by the way, this isn't always about just getting to the CEO. It could be the the CEO of the problem you're trying to solve.
Exactly. Yes.
To put it, or that you could say that it also stands for the Center of Enterprise Opportunity. So it's not always the Chief Executive Officer, but so the thing is that if ideally you've come in and they're already saying, "Man, I love the way you think," well, the conversation's going to be pretty friendly, and we'll focus on the opportunity that you see for them to take advantage of something and something that involves you and your service or product. But there's another thing. When you let's say that you only had a dozen words to explain what it is you wanted to do or why you're reaching out, and let's say you put that in an email, what would you write? What were the words? What are the words that you would say to say, I think, for example, maybe I think we have an opportunity to increase your sales by 25% if we make one quick change. Well, I think they'd be saying, well, how would you do that? And I think that's the perfect way to open a conversation with someone. When again, if you've already done something that has them saying, man, I love the way you think. When I send my cartoon, I might first be asking them, did you enjoy the cartoon, and what happened? Has anyone walked into your office and seen it? And so they'll share stories about that. But anyway, just to getting to what the reason why I reached out to you, I think I see an opportunity for you to increase your sales by 25%, and it really has to do with making one quick change. Could we talk about that? And I think you're probably also in a good spot if you're asking for that permission, because when you ask for permission in that way, you ask the question that I think most of them are going to say, well, how would you do that? So there's permission to continue.
Love it.
And you lay it out, and it's really, I don't want to quote the Challenger sale because I wouldn't do it accurately, but you certainly want to be there to. You're not their consultant, but you want to. I think you want to be there acting like one, or acting as one.
Yeah.
So you're helping them.
Yeah, you start out with a coaching mentality, and and I love the thing that I love about this whole scenario too, Stu. And for those, again, if you're listening to this and you haven't realized that I absolutely love the book and everything that's in it, you're not playing cloak and dagger. You're not bait and switch. There's no Jedi mind tricks. All you're doing is you're getting someone's attention in a big way, and then once you have it, you're presenting value. And the rest is up to you. As a salesperson, you should be able to do those things. But hopefully today we've stirred some things in you to go out there and not just create more value. I'm sure you're a person of value already. If not, obviously we're all striving towards that mark. But really to get attention. To gain the attention of the people that you feel like that you want audience with, and hopefully you've gotten some sparks. I didn't actually share the Bigfoot story. I'll share that, Stu, with you offline. And I need to connect you with one of my favorite people, Bruce Bibb. And gosh, you're gonna love this guy, and his story is nuts. Cool. And it's earned him, I can't even tell you how much money. But hopefully this has done that for you, Stu. I'm gonna leave you with maybe one, if you can encourage the audience into this direction a little bit. Maybe the only thing they've ever done is picked up the phone and create appointments and run presentations and close business. That's what they've been used to. So let's think about people from there. What can we encourage them to maybe to get them from the place where they're from crawling to walking? And then how can we get in touch with you, man?
Sure. Well, thanks. So I would say I would leave you with this, that I think I mentioned the ad. I've been talking a lot today, so forgive me if I didn't mention this. But I sometimes run an ad for my book with the headline "One meeting can change everything." And you heard one meeting did change everything when I saw the picture in the magazine, for example. But those meetings, the meetings that we can have in business, really can change everything. And there are people out there who can change the scale of your career and of your business. And it's your challenge to go connect with them in a way that is meaningful to them and to you. And I think that contact marketing gives you the wings to do that. And actually, I don't think so. I know that it does. And it's something you really, really ought to be checking out. I would also say that, if you don't, if someone's out there saying, I hate cold calling, well, I get it. I mean, a lot of sort of aimless calling isn't a lot of fun. But when you warm these calls up, when they are targeted, and you have people, when you're doing things that has people on the other end of the, on the other end of the campaign saying, whoa, man, I love the way you think. It's a lot of fun. These conversations are just a lot of fun to have. So I really believe that you would find contact marketing to be a godsend in those kinds of circumstances. So you asked how to reach me, and I think probably the easiest way to do it is just to find me on LinkedIn. It's just Stu Heineke, STU, and then my last name Heineke, HEINECKE. Really easy to find me. You can connect with me. You can follow whatever you want to do. I publish a podcast, and I do that on LinkedIn or via LinkedIn posts. It's called the How to Get a Meeting with Anyone podcast, or you can go find the book, How to Get a Meeting with Anyone, anywhere fine books are sold.
And Stu, you've absolutely crushed it today. You also have a business that helps people if they want to outsource some of their contact marketing.
That's true.
And so I would definitely encourage you guys to look Stu up for that. And man, oh man, let's stop playing small. Stu just literally gave you the stone and the sling to be able to knock down the giant. So let's go after some. Let's do some big game hunting, guys. And remember this: if you can sell anywhere, you can sell everywhere, and your talent is not limited by your zip code.
Hey, thank you so much for joining us today on the Sell Anywhere podcast. I really hope that we've equipped you and motivated you to be able to sell no matter where you are. Remember, your talent is not limited to your zip code. And if you can sell anywhere, you can sell everywhere. Hey, if you've enjoyed this, share it with a friend. Rate us on iTunes. We certainly would love a good 5-star rating. And if you know anyone that you think should get involved, or if you would like some more content like this, just go to DonnieTuttleSWC.com. That's DonnieTuttleSWC.com. And we will catch you next time.